Hi and welcome to Movie Hub Recaps. Before we begin, please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell to be informed of new videos. Your support is valued and means the world to us, so let's get into it. Today we are recapping a movie called Fallen, released in 1998. In Philadelphia, a police detective named John Hobbs visits a serial killer known as Edgar Reese, whom Detective Hobbs helped capture and put on death row. Edgar Reese is, however, in high spirits and, during a conversation, he grabs Detective Hobbs' hand and begins a sinister speech in an unknown language, which is initially assumed to be gibberish but is later identified as Aramaic. As the serial killer is executed, he mocks the spectators at the execution chamber and sings "Time Is on My Side" by the Rolling Stones. Detective Hobbs and his partner, Detective Jonesy, then begin to investigate a new string of murders similar to the style of serial killer Edgar Reese, which the detectives assume is being done by a copycat killer. Following hints given by Edgar Reese and the copycat killer, Detective Hobbs tracks down a woman by the name of Greta Milano. Greta explains to Detective Hobbs that her father, also a former detective, committed suicide at their, now abandoned, family lake house, after he was accused of a series of occult murders similar to the ones Detective Hobbs and Detective Jonesy are investigating. Detective Hobbs then visits the Milano family's abandoned lake house and discovers several unsettling books about demonic possession in the basement. As he is looking through the books, he finds a mysterious photo and sees the word "look" written on the back of the photo. He points his flashlight in the direction of the place which is shown in the photo and discovers a name, Azazel, written on a wall, hidden under layers of grime. Detective Hobbs then goes back to visit Greta and asks her about the name, Azazel, but she doesn't tell him anything and strongly urges him to drop the case to protect the lives of himself and his loved ones. Greta reconsiders after a terrifying encounter with Azazel, who confronts her in the guise of several strangers on the street and attempts to possess her. She then seeks sanctuary in a church and contacts Detective Hobbs and begins to explain to him that Azazel is a fallen angel who can possess human beings just by touching them. Detective Hobbs then realizes that Azazel tried to possess Edgar Reese, who shook his hand before the execution, but was not able to possess him. Greta explains to Detective Hobbs that the demon will try to ruin his life and warns him of Azazel's inevitable victory. Azazel visits Detective Hobbs at the precinct, possesses his friend Lou, and begins to taunt him. Azazel moves from person to person, singing the song "Time Is on My Side" after each transfer. Detective Hobbs asks Lou and several other people about why they were singing that particular song, but they have no memory of it. Detective Hobbs runs outside and calls out to Azazel in Aramaic. The demon, now moving among people in the street, praises Detective Hobbs for his cleverness. Detective Hobbs then tells the demon that he knows Azazel's true identity. The demon then threatens him and disappears. To provoke Detective Hobbs, Azazel possesses his nephew, Sam, and attacks his intellectually disabled brother, Art, in their home. Azazel then goes out onto the street and transfers into other people and finally ends up in a schoolteacher. While possessing the teacher, Azazel draws a gun and forces Detective Hobbs to shoot the teacher in front of a group of bystanders. Azazel brags that if the host he currently possesses is killed, he can transfer to another host in the surrounding area without even needing to touch them. Lieutenant Stanton informs Detective Hobbs that his fingerprints were found at one of the murder scenes that were investigated, and in light of the strange circumstances of the shooting of the school teacher, he has become a suspect for all the murders that have taken place. Azazel then possesses several of the bystanders at the school teacher's shooting and gives false accounts that the shooting was unprovoked, bringing more suspicion on Detective Hobbs. Azazel goes into Detective Hobbs' home and murders his brother, Art, while marking Sam. Detective Hobbs escapes and takes his nephew to Greta's house. At Greta's house, Greta explains to Detective Hobbs that, if Azazel is forced out of a host body, Azazel can only travel for as long as one breath can sustain him, and if he cannot find another host in time, Azazel will die. Detective Hobbs then goes to the Milano family's cabin and calls his partner, Detective Jonesy, knowing that Detective Jonesy will trace the call. Lieutenant Stanton and Detective Jonesy arrive at the cabin to arrest Detective Hobbs. However, Detective Jonesy kills Lieutenant Stanton, revealing himself to be possessed by Azazel. Azazel prepares to shoot himself as he is in the body of Detective Jonesy, which will then allow him to possess Detective Hobbs, who is the only other person there for miles around. Detective Hobbs wrestles with Azazel for the gun and is fatally wounded. Detective Hobbs begins to smoke cigarettes, which he explains to Azazel have been laced with the same poison Azazel used to kill his brother, Art, which will then leave Azazel stranded in the wilderness without a host. Detective Hobbs taunts Azazel and kills him. Azazel then possesses Detective Hobbs, frantically trying to flee but succumbs to the poison. After Detective Hobbs dies, Azazel then possesses a cat, who emerges from beneath the cabin and heads back to civilization. That's it for now. Until next time, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.